Afrique Média. Le monde, c'est nous.
Hello?
Hello, you're on the program. Good day to you, sir.
I very appreciate it. I very appreciate all what you are talking about it. Good day and good day to all the viewers of African Media. Thank you, African Media. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.
The United Nations on Thursday, September 2nd, 2021, raised an alarm of a critical humanitarian emergency in Ethiopia's northern region as the government struggles to regain Tigray, which has been hijacked by terrorists. According to the UN, the enduring crisis has triggered a humanitarian crisis in Tigray that has left 400,000 people facing famine-like conditions. However, media ambiguity and bias or subjective reporting by mainstream media makes the whole scenario more cumbersome and difficult to comprehend. The Tigray forces have launched an offensive extending it to Afar and Amhara. This has greatly affected the local population, exposing them to a crucial humanitarian emergency with an uncertain future. Since November 2020, Africa's second most populous nation has witnessed chaotic scenes of attacks, derailing its economic and political development. How can this humanitarian disaster be averted? How can peace return to Ethiopia's northern region?
Good day and good day to all the viewers of African Media. Thank you, African Media. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.
How can a humanitarian disaster or emergency be averted in Ethiopia? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for coming back today to let us talk about the issues concerning or affecting the African continent. We are going to continue with Ethiopia, and then we are analyzing the statement made by the United Nations warning of a dramatic humanitarian disaster in Ethiopia's northern region. And then we are asking if actually this is true, how can it be averted? We are looking at also the ambiguity or the controversies surrounding the situation in the Tigray region, where we discover that there have been a subjective reporting, especially coming from mainstream media, regarding the situation in the Tigray region there in Ethiopia. And that's what we were talking about today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for always making it count to be on Afrique Media at this particular moment. Ethiopia again is a topic for discussion, and how can the country avert a looming humanitarian disaster as reported by the United Nations in its latest report. Going straight away, let's uncover who we have today to unpack in greater details the scenario in Tigray region and other neighboring regions in Ethiopia, how the Tigray crisis or the fighting which erupted in November 2020 is affecting and derailing the economic, political, and social trajectory of Africa's second most populous nation. And it is with delight that I say a warm welcome to Professor Mark Anthony. He's a Pan-Africanist. Hello to you, Professor Mark Anthony. Happy to have you again today.
Thank you very much, Larry. It is my pleasure being on this particular media today. It is actually an opportunity to talk to Africans, and I believe that with this opportunity, I will be able to talk and educate Africans on what should be done and what should not be done as Africans, irrespective of the pressure that is coming from outside of the world. Africa has the capacity to deal with African problems, but if we want to remain dependent and beggars always succumbing to external impositions and sanctions and whatsoever they call them, then we'll end up being the last among human family. And so I think the African man has the right to take decisions for himself, and the time has come for that.
Absolutely. It is time to bring an African approach, Professor Mark Anthony, to African problems. But before we go proper into what is making business today, let's meet Emanuela Nyuki with this report regarding the latest development in Ethiopia. I will join you right after the report.
The crisis going on in the Tigray region in Ethiopia has raised a lot of controversial reports, particularly by Western medias, who go on time without numbers, criticizing the government, talking about the atrocities going on in that region, but not how the government is struggling to save the country, and that region in particular, from falling completely in the hands of terrorists who are heavily armed and are attacking government forces and killing civilians in that area. They're terrorists who seem to be sponsored by a huge body due to the kind of ammunitions they can afford, have decided not to stand down despite the fact that they have been defeated, but have now turned to use unarmed civilians as their shield and also hosting the guerrilla warfare system, which is terrorizing poor citizens in the area who are afraid to be caught in between the crossfire and are being used as shield, therefore forced to flee their homes, causing the number of refugees to increase. Furthermore, with the United Nations adding to the show, claiming to warn the government of Ethiopia of more than 10,000 refugees who have crossed to Sudan since the fighting started. Some scholars say they expected the UN to call on the forces loyal to the regional government of Tigray, who attacked and took over an army base in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, but they did not come through. Still, the government had to launch a military offensive last month in order to get back their base. The government, on their part, had to put in place measures for such an attack not to befall them again, and also protect their citizens by not allowing easy passage to and from Tigray. However, the government is doing its best to take care of those still trapped in the region by giving medical supplies, food and water, and also trying to make safe passage for the United Nations humanitarian workers to get supplies to those in the suburbs, even though the camps where the supplies are kept are being attacked and looted by terrorists, which makes it difficult for food to get to some parts of the region affected.
And that was Emanuela Nyaki with that detailed report, of course, showing how it is difficult there in Ethiopia, how it is difficult for, in spite of the measures or the efforts of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to bring solace to the people affected by the terrorist attacks ongoing in the country's northern region. Professor Mark Anthony, we're coming back to you. Let's go to analyze the statement coming from the United Nations. It is talking of a worsening humanitarian disaster in Ethiopia in the coming months or days. What do you have to say regarding this recent statement from the United Nations pertaining the situation in the northern region of Ethiopia?
You know, I always have a problem with the pronunciations and sweeping statements that come from foreign diplomats and their organizations in order to destabilize Africa. I have a serious problem with that because most of the times when you hear them talk, it seems as if they have a very negative agenda for Africa. They present a picture of an Africa that is not what we experience on the ground.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, is terrible. I am a little bit shocked that when you look at the TPLF, which for over 30 years has been in power, and in 2018, because of the riot, in fact, the people pushed them out of power, meaning that their leadership was wrong and bad. It was against the people. And Abiy Ahmed came up democratically.
Sure.
And he stands as, you see, he was appreciated by Europeans because when Europeans give you the Nobel Peace Prize winner, it's because you have succumbed to their instructions. And because he succumbed to their instructions concerning the Eritrea, Ethiopia problems,
Yeah.
and ceded some stuff to the Eritreans, and okay, the war came to an end. That was a long war which the Tigrans had been fighting. If he was applauded as a Nobel Peace winner, prize winner, what has happened? Within a short period of time, that they tend to start blaming him.
And that's where the controversy lies.
That's somebody who has been working to actually restructure his nation. And in the process of his restructuring of the nation, the Tigran local government has been against his efforts. The same people who thought might be they have the right over the nation, because for over 30 years they had been in power. And I am shocked that America want to side with them. It is true that the Tigran government that had a local military,
Sure.
which was to protect and work with the federal government,
Federal government. For the good of the
though
people.
for the good of the people.
Sure.
They should have some kind of weapons which permit them to do that. But the kind of weapons they are using now at battle against the government soldiers is not the same kind. You see, some people want to compare the situation in Tigray with Cameroon. It has never been. It will never be the same. In Cameroon, the southern Cameroonians, in quote, rose up as a result of negligence from the central government. But the situation in Ethiopia is different in that the Tigray leadership had been in power for 30 years, which means they were controlling Ethiopia. So, in this case, I want to believe that the fact that a non-Tigray came up, took power, is not satisfying to them. And they feel like if these people do not give us power, then we need to separate from this country. That is evil. In fact, it is wrong. And only a foolish government will sit down and allow a nation that had never been divided before to separate itself. A wise leader will fight against the last rebel. Absolutely. Until he crushes them, to make sure he maintains the integrity of the boundaries. Like I mentioned, the situation is different in Cameroon. Cameroon, they had two different colonial masters. Ethiopia had never had a colonial master. Ethiopia was a very big nation, a kingdom. And when rebels came up and actually ousted out the king, our former Haile Selassie, that is when they started a government. But that is as a result of foreign influence. That was America at work. That was never the people of Ethiopia. And a few persons came up and formed a government which has been actually taking away the nation. I am shocked that Ethiopia, which is a nation in Africa that was never colonized, has America as its highest aid. Why should America be giving aid to Ethiopia? They give Ethiopia $1 billion every year. What for?
That's the question that we're
So,
trying to understand.
You go back, you discover today China is flushing in, coming in with everything that they have. They are building structures all over Ethiopia. What are they doing? There is a fight to take over Africa.
So are we trying
that's
to understand the real face of the Tigray crisis?
That is what I'm saying.
Is this the probably I call it the trying to carve the sphere of influence that is bringing the country at
Good. If
at
I
this
cannot
particular
colonize you again, if I can't take everything, I need to take part. Because the Tigray, if they take it, it will remain under the influence of US. If it separates. And I'm shocked to hear that America, who says that they will never accept any form of secession. Americans fought against secession. And the central government won, the union government won. But today, I am shocked to hear that they passed through the name of humanitarian aid whatsoever, aid, and they use the US aid to enter Africa and come to Ethiopia, present in the name of food. What is inside those containers they are carrying, those trucks? Is it just food? Do they really think that Ethiopia can feed their people?
And that's where we have the problematic, or where the problematic lies. We are asking Professor Mark Anthony if actually the country is going to face this humanitarian emergency, or they call it dramatic. How can it be averted by the government of Ethiopia?
The first thing I'm going to say about that is that why is it that it is them that are seeing humanitarian when I am shocked and surprised. What do they use to measure to know that there is a humanitarian crisis there? Why is it that it is US that is declaring a humanitarian crisis? We have worse situations happening in Cameroon for the past 5 years. America have never lifted its voice to talk about that. Why? They do not have anything here in Cameroon to gain, but they got a lot in Ethiopia to gain. And so you will see these people are out to fight for their interests, and they are going to use every strategy possible to make sure that Africans get to feel like they are a second-class group of people. You don't impose on people. We are not slaves again. And so I think it is time for America to understand that Ethiopia has the capacity to deal with their internal issues. Mm-hmm. It is an internal issue in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It does not, you see, there's a difference between Ethiopia and Cameroon. I will still mention.
Absolutely.
There are international laws that show that Cameroon has two different nations, or let me say, people coming together. But there is none concerning the Tigray and the entire Ethiopian people. So, if I'm talking, somebody might want to compare the two. You can't compare the two. But both of them are crises. And I'm shocked to hear how America is struggling to get into the Ethiopian issue so much when they cannot simply deal with one here in Cameroon. I am also a little bit disturbed because in America there are people who are living in slums. But they are not going to give them aid. They want to come and give it to Africans who have the food necessary. They have lands that they are farming. America everywhere. They just withdrew from Afghanistan and allowed a crisis that they created since 20 years ago, and it is going to create more crises in the world. So just see how America is going round the world and creating more crises.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Syria is where it is today because of America.
Sure.
Today we are seeing Ethiopia is getting to crack because of America.
And should Africa watch Ethiopia descend to what Afghanistan has witnessed recently? I think certainly not. Professor Mark Anthony, you made some probably revelations in your analysis. I want us to understand how can we reverse the unfounded allegations and defamation on the Ethiopian government by the international community relating to the present situation in Tigray.
The issue is we should not be fighting to reverse anything, because
maybe trying to tell to the world the real situation, what is actually happening in Ethiopia, because people, especially those who have been following mainstream media, know that the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is actually cracking down on its own people. So how can we reverse this, or how can the government of Ethiopia come forth to maybe revert or reverse what is sent as false or fake news outside regarding what is actually happening in the Tigray region?
Okay, you see, when you go looking at what is happening right now, you discover that it is a strategy, like I said, to destabilize that Horn of Africa.
A country that is trying to position
that is
itself
struggling to
economically.
position itself. You know, Ethiopia is supposed to be the main and, in fact, let me say the largest country in the Horn of Africa. It's supposed to be the largest economy in the East African region. But by working to grow up their economy, those who do not want to see Africa actually truly progress have stepped in to destabilize the whole thing. What would happen if you are, for example, the president of, let's just say, Africamedia is a country, and you are the president, then one of your workers just get to attack maybe the center of production. What will you do to such a person? If the person goes to set it on fire and claim it as his, what will you do? You need to seize it back, because if you don't take it, you are going to not go on air anymore.
Absolutely.
Because the production center, and somebody wants to claim ownership of it when the person does not have it. That is exactly what happened in Tigray, where individuals thought they had monopoly over a region which is not theirs. They are just part of a nation. And because they have been given the opportunity, it's a federated country. And so you rule, but it does not make that particular region autonomous.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the error. But who pushed them to attack the federal base?
That's what we want.
That
to
is
uncover.
where I believe that somebody, not from inside, but from outside.
Using those from inside.
Yes, normally in Africa, if you hear that an African has killed an African, in fact, if you hear that an African is dying, who should you blame? It's an African killing the African. Because they always look for those who are hungry to pass through them and destroy what is being built for everybody. Greedy individuals will always be positioned as the pathway for foreigners to access Africa. And that is what we have as a problem right now. There are individuals, all those whom we claim as, because the entire population of the Tigrans are not necessarily behind the Tigran,
the crisis that is ongoing.
Behind the formal, they call it TPLF.
Yeah.
Not everybody is with them, because they are the ones creating the problem. I don't think that the Tigrans are for them. They, in one way or the other, are being sponsored by somebody who is using the opportunity to destabilize the entire environment, because the GDP of that particular economy was rising. And because of the rise of that economy, look at where we are today. They have made sure that they destroy it back to zero. They seem to be fighting Africa from every corner. They create a situation in Central Africa. Once it is bubbling, they rush to East Africa, they create a situation. It is bubbling, they go to West Africa, they create a situation. As we are talking, in Mozambique, there is a problem.
Can we say this is a move to derail the continental free trade area? Because Africa trading with itself will take the continent very far. Can it be a reason for all these attacks happening on the continent
Africa,
in the contemporary society?
I want to make this statement clear. I've said it here severally. The fact that we created the African Continental Free Trade Area is not a strategy on itself. It needs a support system.
Absolutely.
And for that support system, even if that support system is available, even if those attacks start coming, they will not be able to destroy us again. But they are making sure that we should not arrive that point. And what are those support systems? The support system that the African Continental Free Trade Area needs for it to actually succeed. There is need for not just a single currency for the entire African continent, but there is also a need for a single passport, which will permit that Africans, wheresoever they are Africans. That will indirectly break down the borders which we have, separating us and claiming that I am a Cameroonian and you are a Nigerian, or this person is that. When that is done, I will have access into anywhere to do not only the trade, but to also participate in growing the economy of Africa. So, I don't want to say that they are doing that to attack that particular AFC, African Continental Free Trade Area, because it is not really a major issue. They don't want Africans to realize that they can unite. You see, China stands as an independent body because it made sure it stayed with almost all the other Asian countries that were not supposed to be called China. It's a strange federation which remains solid. For example, Hong Kong is part of China, but normally it was not supposed to be. It was supposed to be a nation on its own. And there are others, but they are standing as one with over 1.3 billion people. Now they have a strength to face the war because they have gotten they've successfully got insight and scientific technology from the West. And they have improved on it and created their own. And they are pushing on the economy. Look at the infrastructural development of China between the years 1920. I'm talking of 1920. Let's come back to 1980. Between 1980 and 2020, you will be shocked. It has become a different environment altogether. It was a developing nation. Now it is a developed nation. Let's look at the way the Europeans have worked out their unity. They decided to create a union which permits them to have not only a single passport, a single currency, but they also have established a central government that actually gives that political authority for the president of the European Union to be able to give sanctions to a nation if it does anything foolish. And that is what Africa needs to be doing if we have to stand. America in itself is a continent, but it is a nation. So just imagine those, we call it the United States of America. So it's a union of states. But look at us. We have states that are claiming to be nations. Like, for example, Rwanda is a country of about 2-3 million persons. Let's go down to Djibouti. Djibouti might be about 700 to 8 to 1 million people. Equatorial Guinea is about 1 million people now. Are you calling those nations? Those are quarters in you go to Nigeria. Nigeria is over 100 and something million people. Yes, that's a nation. And so, if we can unite all these forces together, then we'll have a solution to all those problems. We'll be able to not only trade with these guys, but we'll make decisions. We will sit on a round table and we decide together. You don't impose on us.
Absolutely,
And we,
absolutely, Professor.
Before I give you it is strange how a country which is doing business with another actually does not have a currency of its own. It depends on the currency of the foreigner in order to define the trade links and advantages. You are losing everything. There's no win-win in it. It's a win-lose situation.
Of course, we'll come back to that, Professor Mark Anthony. Let's go back to Ethiopia. How will it take to get back peace to this nation? Before you answer that question, I just want to remind our televiewers that this is informative and also interactive programs. A program, I beg your pardon. So you can be part of this program by just dialing the numbers you have on your screen and say what you think regarding the present situation in Ethiopia's Tigris region. How can the government avert a humanitarian crisis or disaster as reported by the United Nations in its latest report? Professor Mark Anthony, we are looking at how peace can return or come back to Ethiopia. Without the presence of peace, so many things will go wrong, especially when it comes to economic developmental activities. How will it take, or what will it take to bring back peace to to Ethiopia and especially to the northern region?
I think what the Prime Minister is doing already is enough. He's taking the right step in dealing with the issue.
Maybe how will the Tigrayan forces get to understand that it's high time they put down their arms and join with the federal government for the good of the people?
You see, those are greedy. The people who are actually pushing this thing in Ethiopia are the greedy people who want to feed fat alone and push the others to suffer.
Sure.
They are the ones who are doing all this. And that is what I would tell every African. There are people who not want Africa to emerge as long as they can feed fat, even if they are slaves in the house of the enemy. We cannot keep on selling the continent into the hands of individuals who would destabilize our nations. I think Africans need to become wise enough to start sorting out every individual who has personal relationship with the West, with the East, which is against the house itself, against the nation. And so I think it is time for them, for each one of us, to redefine who we are. Are we Africans or are we Europeans? Because when we do that, it will permit us to know exactly how we can contribute towards the development of our continent. If you are a selfish individual, the only thing you can do is to give yourself out to the foreigner, because let's be sincere, we can't keep blaming Europe for our problems. We can't blame America for our problems. We blame the Africans. I don't think any European actually came into Africa. No American came to Tigray and went and attacked a military base. They were Tigrans. But who are they? Those are sold out. Those are individuals who do not have the nation in their heart. They are thinking of themselves. They are greedy. You know, greed in a simple word is envy for another man's thing.
Sure.
You are looking at something, you are envying it, you want to have it all for yourself. That's a greedy man. And that is what has pushed most of these guys to get involved in working with most of these Americans and Europeans. When we talk of Americans and Europeans, we are not talking of the American government. This is what is America. Some individuals
Absolutely, yeah.
who are like out to create instability where they can get what they need. You see, today, when you go to the Congo, you realize that Congo stands as one of the richest environments in the world with a lot to gain. But there is something that you will be shocked to know. from the day of the independence of the Congo, the Republic du Congo, till today, it has never actually been peace. Why? If it struggles to have a stable government, some individuals will come in to stir it up. Why? As long as they keep stirring it, they keep removing the cupboard that is there.
Okay.
The telephones we are having today, what you have there using, it's coming from Congo.
Okay, Professor Mark Anthony, I'll come back to you. I think it's time for us to visit our televiewers who want to share their own opinion regarding our topic for today. And Maurice Martins is joining us from the economic capital of Cameroon, Douala. Hello to you, Mr. Martins. It's a pleasure having you today.
Good afternoon, Clarice and the panelists. I am Martin calling in from Douala. Yes, Clarice. Every day in Africa, we are almost singing the same story, whether in this African nation, whether in that African nation, or whatever the situations there, they are actually somehow very, very similar. But I think, Clarice, the most important question shouldn't be how can this humanitarian disaster somehow be averted. The most important question should be how we can contain these conflicts in Africa and contain them for good. And Clarice, the truth about it that we can only do this if we go back to the root causes of these problems. You see to who are those who are actually funding this crisis. You ask deeply where the weapons are coming from. You ask deeply who are the main guys responsible. There are some people behind all of this. We know that, Clarice, our union is our strength. They make all what may so that we will remain divided, so that particularly them, the West, they will be able to come in and have their way and do what they want to do, or have their narratives about Africa. You see, I've always said the situation of Africa, the problem of Africa lies in the hand of Africa, and we should solve them the African way. We can only solve them the African way if we ignore all these external forces coming in like solution. The UN every day. When it happened in Rwanda in the 90s, they said never again. Now, since it was one of theirs, France, that was just all. Even they came in, France came and apologized. They were actually the one. Nothing have been done. No indemnities have been paid. No compensation so far. Now in the Tigray region, we see every day they are singing the same song and saying the same thing. How can we avert this? How can we do this? The UN, the mother organization in the world too, seems to be very, very helpless. You read their reports every day. You see what they are actually giving. And this only points back to the point. To the main point, Clarice, that we and as African people, we should come back and see how we can sit on the table, we face our brothers and see how we can solve our problems forever. Well, with the evolution of politics and so on and so forth, most of our leaders discover that they don't even need to get into what they call democracy. They only need power, and that power is gotten through various means, through financial, through wars, through getting of weapons and so on and so forth, to use them to intimidate. That is why something, no matter how little it is in our various countries, our leaders don't bother. You see them, they've spent much money in training armies, building the military and so on and so forth, to quell on dissent. And this was not actually something that was before. In our olden days, Clarice, we used to actually rely much on consensus. That was why even prisons we did not have. But were there problems? Yes. But somehow little, minute somehow, but we were able to solve them within our community. What happens today, that the education level has grown, technological level has grown, and you see, instead war, we are supposed to instead be having more solutions to ourselves, but it's like, as we are getting more mature, problems are instead increasing. It is because we must go back. Let's look back where we came from. Let's forget about all these Western decrease, all the Western law, all the Western institutions, and we look back into ourselves like the African people and see how we used to solve our situation, and we'll go back to our trajectory, our culture, our beliefs, and have our roots strengthened once and for all. And the most important thing, the West know that if you have to go back to this thing, a lot of dares, a lot of the maneuver, a lot of the instruments in the name of international laws or whatsoever, aids and so on and so forth will be disabled. And that is the truth. We have no option than to go back. Ethiopia, in our heart, we desire for a more united Africa, but our leaders too must come in to see how they themselves can come down and learn to listen to their people to offer solutions that will be for the benefit and for the benefit of everyone and not just for them, the elite. Once more, nice day, Clarice and co. Happy weekend.
Thank you so very much, Maurice Martins. Happy weekend to you. We are going to Yaoundé to meet Mr. Shu Gerard. Is always there. Thank you again, Mr. Shu Gerard, for joining us today.
And viewers of Afrique Media, it is Shu Gerard calling from Yaoundé. My knowledge in history tells me that once the people revolt and no quick action is being taken, such a revolution will escalate. Look at the French Revolution, where the people revolted because of the grievances of the peasant. You look at the Agrarian Revolution. You look at the Rhodesian Revolution. You look at the Crimea War. You look at the Tunisian Revolt. You look at the revolt in Burkina Faso, and many other revolt, Clarice, that had toppled regimes or that had quest for independence. Just look at Sudan, where Omar Bashir did not want South Sudan to get independent. John Garang, who initiated the move, died because of war. Thousands of people were killed. Then he named a group called Njanjaweed, where many people were killed. And he thought that he was to escape. And it's on his own people that toppled him down and arrested him for crimes against humanity, even though the ICC was booking him for that. Now, the war in Ethiopia, Clarice, and those Afrique Media, that I'm telling you, I could not be able to blame Africa that, or us that, we cannot be able to solve our own problem alone. We have made it clear that we are limited in knowledge, we are limited in many things, that if such thing happen, we must always wait for the West to come in, and it is true, we cannot do the war the West. The West is coming in to solve our problem. It will create a humanitarian. The UN is right for its prediction. Any war must create a humanitarian crisis, or we call a humanitarian corridor. People will live from one place to another for fear of war. It is war. Who like to sit where there is war and be killed? That is why thousands will suffer. What is the war in southern Cameroon, where people are living to Nigeria, living to other French-speaking regions? What is the war in Nigeria, where many Nigerian refugees are found in Cameroon, in Betua? What is the war in the Central African Republic, where people revolt against the government and they are moving from one country to another? It always creates a humanitarian crisis corridor where people are running for safety. Abiy, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, should rather seek, as I said before, should rather seek for dialogue. If he does not, because the Tigris rebels are the main business. Even if you kill all the leaders, other leaders will resurface and the thing will continue. So, instead of using a military solution to solve that problem, as I said before, dialogue and consultation should be the key word, because diplomacy had failed to solve that problem. The people have a right to revolt. Maybe the government is not, maybe something is wrong. Politically, economically, things are not moving well in the country. That's why people revolt to get independent, to go their own way. Abe is afraid that he might not make good history. He is stooding ground to say, so that history should say that he, Abe, was the one, the prime minister was the one who subdued, who quailed down the revolution of.
Mr. Gerard, of course, I'll always say that we have the right to our opinions. Professor Mark Anthony, Looking critically, we've had maybe the viewpoints of our televiewers who just joined us now, and looking at the unfoldment in Ethiopia, one could say that there's a political maneuver to derail the reforms of the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And then some people are of the opinion that a dialogue is the way forward towards solving the crisis, the ongoing crisis. How can this be done when the Tigray forces have actually been launching offensive and taking up arms against the government? Who will the government dialogue with?
You see, I'm not against the fact that there's need for dialogue.
Absolutely.
Dialogue remains the only possible strategy of dealing with issues like that. In every crisis, communication is supposed to remain at the center, because communication is the only way possible through which one
constructive communication.
Yes, through which one can actually make his positions and opinions known, and could be talked with, discussed in a sitting. I am not also saying that people should pick up arms against the government and the government should stay quiet. I'll still repeat it. When you people quote situations like that, like I just heard the last intervening, you don't quote the Ethiopian situation and mix it with Cameroon situation. The Cameroon situation is completely different. We remember that in Cameroon, if you go back on, I think the 1st of October in 2017, 1st of October 2017, there's something that happened that provoked a lot of people, and Cameroonians were angry. Even with all the anger that they had aired their grievances. What happened? On the 1st, I think it was January, not 1st, but I think January, the government, rather than keep on talking with the persons who were representing the people, they gathered them up and locked them up. Then the body which was meant for discussion, the consortium, was tagged non-legal. So they dissolved it. That already is a problem. That shows that one party is sitting on a high horse, does not see the problems of the people. It doesn't care.
But when you look at what is happening in Ethiopia...
Can I, Rob? I'm coming to Ethiopia. I'm saying this because I want to show that there are two different situations.
Okay.
In Cameroon, it all happened that on that same 2017 on October 1st, people went out with pieces of, in fact, with leaves, peace branches and all that. And some of them were shot down to death. I think it was supposed to be the place of the government to locate those who did that evil act of killing and sanction them. But what happened? It all happened that rather than dealing with such a situation, it was transformed into a military solution. And the government sent in more military to deal with the situation. And it created a war situation, a crisis, where individuals now went into the bushes and picked up arms. Okay, but look at the situation in Ethiopia. Why I said it's completely different is because the Ethiopian government did not send military to attack the people in Tigray. It is the Tigrayan soldiers, the local government soldiers, who picked arms, attacked and seized a military base, a federal military base, that already is an attack against the government. I mean, a military attack against the government. It is just but normal that such a reaction should take place. In 18, I'm forgetting the date exactly, when the Confederate soldiers in America declared themselves an independent state. It was the right of the president to declare a war in order to seize back the section of the country that says it has seceded. There was a soldier there whom the Union government wanted to give him leadership over the military. He rejected because he was coming from the South. And he went to the South and was fighting for the South until the Union government won that battle. I want to ask a question. Did they kill people down there in the South in America? A lot of persons died. Did they declare it a humanitarian situation? No. Because they were fighting to protect a union. You come to Cameroon, to Ethiopia, of people, soldiers, go pick arms to stand against the federal government, then claim separation. They want to separate.
Presenting themselves like the vulnerable.
And now you want the people. In fact, what is irking me about it is that the same people who are out there claiming that they are protecting the rights of nations, the same people who are out there claiming that they want to protect so-called democracy, are the same people who are sowing seeds of discord, ready to sponsor rebels to fight against their own nation. Today, the federal government of Ethiopia has declared the Tigrayan, they call them what? TPLS?
The TPLF.
LF as a terrorist group, because they are the ones behind this. Those are the same people that used to lead that nation. Now they have become rebels. That's to tell you that at times there is a problem. It's the same thing that happened in Central Africa, where a former president was ready to stand against a ruling president. In fact, created a rebel group, a rebel union. That's to make you understand those are not patriotic people.
Absolutely.
Those are greedy persons,
politicians
working for their stomachs. And I feel act inside whenever I hear somebody say you should go negotiate with somebody who is, they are not boys like we have in Cameroon who were not trained. Those are soldiers trained by the government who picked arms.
Actually, to protect the government.
They were trained to protect the government's interest, to protect the nation. But they turned against the government, and today you say they should negotiate with them.
Of course,
anyway, negotiating
Prime
with them.
Minister Abiy Ahmed has a strong prowess that he's bent on taking back the integrity and the sovereignty of his nation.
That is what every true leader or any person leading a nation would do.
Mm-hmm.
You do not think that it is easy. We are saying Cameroon's case is different. But it will not be normal for the Cameroon president to just get up and say, okay, you people want to go? Go. No. Nope. They will fight and they will fight. It is until it gets to a level. You see, we keep saying that America has never won a war anywhere. Because when they have just failed another war in Afghanistan, like they did in 1960 in how do they call this place again? They fought and abandoned it and ran and came back to their country.
And that's not what actually the Prime Minister of Ethiopia wants to see becomes of his country
No.
today or tomorrow.
Africa, I mean, foreign bodies, they need to stay out of Africa. Allow us to build our continent. So, if you ask me what if I was Abiy Ahmed,
actually, we were already out
yes.
of time.
If
Just
you
a
ask
concluding
me
statement.
what I would do if I am him, I would simply say, like he is doing, I am not letting go of any part of my nation. As long as I am the president of the nation,
the Prime Minister,
I am not going down with that idea or that history will not record me as an individual who would break the nation and give it out to some few rebels. Nope. So I'll need to clean it out. Now, these same rebels, after having been defeated on battlefield, what have they done? They are now using the human shield, human beings as their shield. They are using the underground method of fighting, which is a dangerous strategy, because you might be shooting somewhere, you don't know who you are shooting, you might be shooting an innocent civilian.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
Professor
that is
Martin.
where the crisis has changed hands. But in this case, I think the president, yes, the president needs to intervene in this case. Not only allow it in the hands of the prime minister. She needs to intervene. She is a woman whom the people respect. So she should not stay quiet, because I've not been hearing her. It's time for her to intervene. Let her talk through this issue. And then, apart from that, I think Abiy Ahmed also needs to, in one way, compromise to an extent.
What do you mean by
there are some demands that you might surely have to accept them in order to see that peace should continue, and in order to see that his nation remains as one. But there are situations and positions he should not alter from.
Okay.
Like, for example, ceding to the rebels, or terrorists as he called them, because the Tigran government, the Ethiopian government now calls the TPLF.
Because of the nature of attacks
yes.
on Tigrayans.
Yes, because they are actually creating terrorism there now. And so those are some of the things that I think should be done in order to maintain. But as I said earlier, dialogue always remains at the center of all. So it is necessary they have the time to talk. They should create that opportunity where they listen to the people. Because a true succeeding government, if you want to succeed, you want to experience success as a leader, at times you give the opportunity for people to take their decisions. You see,
Professor Martin, of course, I know you have a lot to say regarding the situation in Ethiopia, but we have to go, and I want to thank you for giving us your time today and for the great analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who participated, thanks for always trusting the Pan-African television and sharing your opinions, seeing how Africa can solve its own problems using the African approach. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to put an end to today's edition of Views on the Continent. I want to thank you immensely for always being there. Do have a lovely weekend, and I wish to see you same time next week for another interesting program. Bye bye, and see you some other time.
Hello, you're on the program. Good day to you, sir.
I very appreciate it. I very appreciate all what you are talking about it. Good day and good day to all the viewers of African media. Thank you, Tunisia. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.